So here it is, November time. My bee's still collecting pollen from one of two places. I think it's either going to be from the ivy around the corner, or it's going to be from my my pollen feeder. But here they are, fairly busy. Warmish day, over 12 at least. These guys have actually got a feeder up here. So this is where the roof would have usually been. I'll zoom out actually, it's very easy to see them. Right, yeah. So what we've got is we've got the main box here, entrance at the bottom with a reducer on. It goes to the top, and then it has this false. Go on, focus. It has this false roof. So that yellow roof at the top there, or the black and yellow roof, would normally sit directly on the yellow. So it's got this false roof basically, and that goes round the outside, and then there's actually wood inside, which is quite difficult to see actually. I'll see if I can kind of show it. Yeah, so basically, get a halfway decent focus. So basically, you have this here, which sits on the outside, but then it actually indents in here, and you've got the rest of the space is actually a thinner bit of wood, the same dimensions as this. That actually has a piece of plywood fixed to it with a hole in, so that the bees can go up, and there's actually fondant there as well. So that's how they're going to be overwintered. I'm going to replace the stand here. This was just so that they could sit level on a slanted roof. Okay, so this is a cutout I did much earlier on in the year, this hive here. It's fairly busy, and what they're doing is they're actually collecting a lot. There's quite a lot of pollen coming back on this one. There we go, you can see it. There we go. So they're bringing back pollen. In fact, all of those were bringing back pollen there. And at this time of year, like I said, there's two places they're getting pollen from. The first would be ivy, and there's some ivy nearby. And the second place where they get pollen from is from this. So I've just got this here. And this is a pollen feeder. So they're just collecting pollen out of here. It's actually quite a strange thing because it's not that far away from the actual hive itself, but they don't fly directly from here to here. They actually come out of here, still do their upward flight, and then you see them actually kind of loop round and then go to the feeder. What I'm also going to do is I'm just going to quickly demonstrate. It's a good time to do it because the plane's flying over. I'm just going to quickly show. I have got a feeder in here as well. That's what this kind of false roof is here. This one's different to the one in that it's not an outer piece with an inner piece and then the roof. This is just an outer piece with a kind of rim. Not really a rim. How would you describe it? Like an edge going round so that it sits on this. It's fully open, so I actually have to use wooden kind of plate-like things that go in and that sit in there. But that's the thing with beekeeping and woodwork, you're always redesigning. I'm going to open this one just to show you what's inside. It's not too cold, so hopefully the bees won't mind and it won't be too much of a disturbance for them. But I'll just quickly get the roof off. There we go. And what it has under there is it has a little bit different to the other one. The other one I actually used a piece of plywood with a hole in and put it halfway down With this one I've actually used this as a roof, but if I just quickly just lift this up, hopefully it should focus fast enough and you'll be able to see the bees feeding inside. There we go, and that's the feeder there. This is the actual where the hive itself is. I think there's a lot of mixture of fondant that's been spilt by the bees there. There was one with fondant and pollen in it, and I think that's what they've spilt there. Okay, there we go. You want something that you can check fairly regularly, and that's really easy to take apart, really easy to replace the fondant as and when it needs replacement. I do also feed fondant outdoors, but we're going to have a look at that one in just one moment. Okay, so this is just a place where I feed fondant outdoors for them. When it's nice and warm, they'll all come and feed on here. I have this one which is an external one. That's just a great big piece of fondant that they're working on. Hopefully they'll take it down. Got a bee next to me that obviously isn't happy with my presence there. There we go. And I also have one for when it rains but is still warm enough. I have one in here as well. Very similar to the other one, if it can focus. Trying to get it to focus in there is very difficult. There we go. I think it's gone into low light mode, which isn't brilliant. But there they are. You do get the odd occasional one that lands upside down. But they're working that they're working that quite well. You'll tend to find with fondant, because it's solid, you'll tend to get these collections of bees together. They kind of warm it up, and then it's easier for them to deal with. You can also get sugar syrup and kind of dribble it on to encourage it to dissolve so that they can deal with it better. But they don't really seem to have too much of a problem taking it down. And last but by no means least is this one here. So this is actually on one of my old hives. It's one of my old bait hives. It probably needs moving actually, because the grass might be dead underneath. I hadn't thought of that. But this is one of my old bait hives. It's the one that went into the green one there. We're gonna have to try and be quick, because somebody's obviously doing industrial hoovering or something. And so basically this is the same. It just has a piece of fondant there. Like with the rest of the fondant, really, they tend to work one area. So the bees there are just working that area. A couple of others around, but they'll mainly work in that area there. They get the heat on it, and then it tends to be easier for them to break down. So that's all the places where I'm feeding bees. Okay, so this is my kind of old faithful hive. Not really messed with it in any way. It's still as busy as ever. You can see that these are bringing back pollen as well. It's either from an ivy or possibly from the pollen I provided. These I won't be feeding. They should be absolutely fine for the winter. Okay, so at one point this was actually the only hive I had in the garden, until vandals saw me having to bring back other hives. These, a bit of a strange hive really. They've gone quite quiet. They're still going, and they're bringing back pollen like the rest of them, but they are quite quiet. The comb it's quite old in here now, so these guys probably need changing and having that replaced. These also are not going to be fed. I fed them in the first year to get them through. They should be absolutely fine now. They don't really get bothered by the other bees. But these are basically the 4 hives that I have in the garden. I do have hives elsewhere, of course, in trees and various other places. Those bees are all on their own. They won't be getting any help from me at all. But these, they're working. They seem to be working quite well. There is some pollen coming back here. Like I say, I don't know whether it's ivy or the pollen I'm providing, but these are busy enough. I'll be happy with that level of activity for a hive that's kind of quite small like this one is. During summer it's never that quiet though.